Alright, so I really have been wanting to showcase this Pokemon Showdown team for a while. I've been working on creating new and exciting teams for Series 10. I think I've played over 350 matches in Series 10 alone with different teams. I like to try to run monotypes and do creative kind of gimmicky strats, but have some backbone to them. And I made it to pretty high on ladder with this really strange team. And you can see I have Zacian, Ditto, Zapdos, Urshifu, Dark, Sableye, and Tornadus. So I call this team Sableye because we have our Sableye right here who has Encore and Disable, which means if you don't have an opponent who can resist your Prankster, so if they're not Dark, if they don't have Serena and it's not Psychic Terrain, then you can disable their move after they use it, so you usually protect first. Then you disable them because you have priority over them, assuming they're not using some priority move, and they can't use Fake Out or Extreme Speed on you because you're Ghost type. So you disable their move, and then they're like, oh, I'll just use a different move. But then you Encore them the next turn, and that forces them back into their disabled move, and they have to either swap out the next turn or they have to just struggle. So if you get it down to just Sableye versus another Pokemon, it's basically a good game because they're taking a quarter of their health every turn. Foul Play one-shots Calyrex Shadow Rider, which is, I don't need to say any more about that. Full defensive bulk and full HP, so it's really strong defensively. It does struggle against things like Water Spout and Astral Barrage. However, I have counters to things that Sableye struggles with. Sableye also does really well against Calyrex Ice Rider too, especially once it gets attack boosted. We have Zacian. I opted for Adamant Nature because I prefer to have Adamant over Jolly. It just works better sometimes, especially if you get Tailwind up, and you don't always need to be faster than their Zacian. Sometimes it's advantageous to be, but I have found that not to be a problem with this team. It's honestly preference, and the extra 20, I think it is. Yeah, extra 22 attack really makes a big difference, especially with Swords Dance. This thing's an absolute monster. Ditto, Focus Sash Ditto, I find to be better than Scarf Ditto, especially because I run to Trick Room matches a lot and I'd struggle with those otherwise. Max Speed and Timid is really the best, and 252 HP obviously. There's been times where I send out Ditto into something that has Substitute because I have to, it's like my last mon or something, and it needs to be and obviously Substitute blocks Imposter. You can't imposter a substitute, so you have to transform manually, and being faster is really helpful sometimes. We have Lil Pecker, our Zapdos, who is Thunderous Kick, Brave Bird, Coaching, Detect, Max Speed. Outspeeds a lot of things in the format, which is really, really nice. I like it a lot. It's pretty strong against things like Rillaboom, and the Flying type. It's just a really good addition to the team. I don't bring it very often in matches, but there's circumstances where, like Incineroar, Zacian really struggles with, as does Sableye, so Zapdos absolutely rolls Incineroar. You can use Defiant to counter it. Thunderous Kick, I think, one-shots it, and you really just have to worry about Fake Out. This thing is an absolute monster. I have mixed feelings about it. Adamant and Choice Band is a little excessive. However, even if you get stat drops with it, like Intimidate, it's insane. I have one-shot some very questionable Pokemon. Like, I don't remember what it was. I think it was like a neutral close combat at -1, so not like super effective or anything, and it one-shot. I forget what it was, but it's absolutely ridiculous. Thunder Punch is super useful into flying types, and it's also really good to Kyogre. So obviously I don't have that much speed. You can see 149 is not great compared to some other speedier things in the format, which is why you want to pair this thing with Fastest Fork or Tornadus. Walk and Berry, obviously I can't sash this thing because it's on Ditto, so it really does protect against Regieleki pretty well. Air Slash, Tailwind, taunt and protect. Sometimes I like to use these two together a lot. And one thing you can do is encore and taunt. If they start using status moves, you can just completely shut down any setup mons turn 1. That's again assuming that they're not on psychic terrain, they're not dark type, and they don't have a Serena out. So those are like your 3 things you have to worry about. But usually you can take care of those with other members of this team. So that's the team, and now I want to show some replays. So yeah, I want to show also again right here, I got to 1500 with this, and I actually worked my way up from like the bottom of the ladder. I didn't like climb something else. So I want to show you a couple of replays actually. So let's take a look at this. So he's doing your very typical Tornadus Kyogre, and I'm thinking to myself, alright, I want to protect, double protect turn 1, because if he water spouts and tailwinds, which is kind of the obvious play here, he might not, because Sableye can run fake out, and I forgot Sableye runs fake out sometimes, so I was like, oh, okay, it's fine, like, I'll just double protect. I want to be able to lock him into water spout, hopefully, and then disable that. If he's scarfed, even better, I don't have to encore him. But he swaps Serena. I was not expecting this, and it's a good thing I didn't try to use any of my prankster moves. So anyway, he water spouts. Okay, fine. Now I can't disable it, and it's really awkward situation. So I just opted Tailwind, and then I think I went for Foul Play, but I died. So this is fine, actually, because my back right here is Zacian and Ditto, and I have Tailwind up. So something you can do with this team that's really, really, really good is to just sack your mons like turn 1, if they can't get their setup happening, and then copy their restricted mon. So in this case, Kyogre. So now I have Tailwind up, and I outspeed him. And so having Zacian on the field next to another restricted is so strong, because, like, what weaknesses do I really have here in Tailwind? You really can't set up against this. And so you see, I just wipe his field out turn 3. He has Tornadus and his own Kyogre. Okay, so if he Tailwinds here, and he does, it doesn't really do terribly much. I'm still running Water Spout after Water Spout on this man. Not to mention Zacian Tailwind outspeeds just about everything in the format. So I don't think there was any way he could have won this. Obviously, if his Kyogre outsped mine, it was a speed tie. He could have potentially used Thunder. I don't know if that would have mattered. He might have been able to take Ditto out. Well, actually, no, he could not have taken Ditto out because of my focus sash. But even if he had run the speed tie here, I think I would have been fine. So this is one example of you can just sack your Tornadus. Ditto is so strong if you have Tailwind up, or if it's in Trick Room, you can still win the matchup pretty easily with focus sash. There's been times where I think I've copied their Calyrex Shadow Rider. Obviously, it wasn't in Trick Room. It outsped me, but Sash allowed me to just Astral Barrage him. And when he wasn't, I think it was like Life Orb or something. So Sash Ditto is really the optimal play, I think. You can Scarf, but you really struggle in Trick Room with this team otherwise. Another example of this team doing really well, I think this was, I was in the 1300s. Yeah, the first match I was in 1200s, so I think he could have probably played better. 1300s, where things start getting a little bit more difficult. So I lead Zapdos and Zacian, and he has a Veltal. I think it's supposed to be a Trick Room team, so this is his lead. I just go for Behemoth Blade, and you can notice something about Behemoth Blade with Adamant. It takes Yveltal. Yveltal's bulky, like really bulky. It takes him down to 20% health, which is just, like super good. That's why I prefer the Adamant Zacian over Jolly, because Zacian outspeeds just about everything in the format, and max speed with Adamant Nature gives you 200. So you tie anything with base 130 and like Timid or Jolly. So most of the time Zacian will outspeed basically everything else in the format. It doesn't outspeed Calyrex and Regieleki, but giving it Jolly Nature doesn't do that anyway, and it outspeeds them both in Tailwind. So to me, the Adamant Nature just makes sense. Anyway, so I double into it and gets destroyed. Now this is really funny. He gets a double accuracy drop, I think. No, he just gets accuracy drop on Zapdos, and then he forfeits, which I'm not sure why. I think he had every opportunity to win this, but yeah, I guess this is just a funny match of people. I've had people forfeit turn 1 and 2 for some reason, and I think part of it has to do with how these things are EV trained. I like the higher attack stat in general because I think speed is important, but if you can do more damage than your opponent, you can position yourself better where speed doesn't matter. Like, field state matters, I think, more than the speed of your Pokemon. The last match here, this is probably one of the greatest matches I've ever had. So it started off really rough, and this is one example where I think I talked about Calyrex Shadow Rider, and how you can copy it and do really amazing things with Ditto. So unfortunately, I have not been able to really showcase any of Sableye's abilities to let me pause this for a second, to disable things. However, against Rage Powder users, since Rage Powder goes before disable, you want to disable them turn 1 because they'll actually because they'll move before you, and then you'll disable it and they can't use it next turn. So what happened here, I taunted and I disabled, so I knew that this Volcarona was going to get really, really annoying. I was not going to be able to defeat this Calyrex unless I took Volcarona off the field or just made it struggle. So as I told you before, taunt plus encore onto some status move or a setup mon completely disables it. So this thing can only struggle, basically. Calyrex, unfortunately, I was expecting to Astral Barrage, which is why I did this. I was like, I'm just going to send out Ditto and hope for the best. I'm going to copy Calyrex. The problem here is that he sucked, and I was like, oh, that's not good. So now this turn he can just Astral Barrage. However, I know that Fastest Fork cannot die in one shot to Astral Barrage. I think I trained it specifically. I think in general it doesn't die to it. And I'm pretty sure it's not a roll. So he gets this special attack boost. Volcarona can't really do anything. I wasn't really afraid of Volcarona doing anything. I mean, it's literally locked into struggle right now. So this turn, with Calyrex at 1.5 special attack, it can one-shot Zacian. And I forgot about that, that he had gotten the boost. I was like, oh, I can live one attack. No, I can't. So I Tailwind, Behemoth Blade, takes out the sub. So now his Calyrex is exposed, his Volcarona is not doing anything. So I don't know why he kept Volcarona in here. This is really, really dumb. And it's just sitting there struggling, not doing anything. Okay, so now I'm down to just Ditto. Good thing about Ditto is that it copies the stat changes too. So I get his boosts, and I'm at full health, and I'm still sashed. So here he protects, which makes sense. He wants to stall up my Tailwind because I have a Juggernaut on my field. I think this thing has around like 400, 500 special attack at this point. My Calyrex, that is, or Ditto. So I get rid of his Volcarona, so that's kind of bad. Like, I want that thing to be on the field because it's absolutely useless. At least for the next 3 turns, I can probably just one-tap it anyway with Calyrex at the end of the game. So, but I'm not starting to get boosts. So he goes for double protect, and he actually gets it, which is super unfortunate because if he hadn't gotten that double protect, I would have just probably won this turn. What I don't know is that he has Moltres in the back. I take his Whimsicott down to Sash, so I know he has no more Sash on this team, which is really, really good. Now, this is my last run of Tailwind, and I am hoping to win the speed tie here. If I don't, I should still be fine. So if let's say he goes first, his Calyrex goes before mine, brings me down to Sash, Astral Barrage then kills both Whimsicott and Calyrex, and it's just me down to whatever he has left, which is a risk I'm willing to take at this point. I'm trying to win a 1v4, so I just go for another Astral Barrage here, but he actually protects Whimsicott, which is weird, and I win the speed tie, which is pretty fortunate, but he did get double protect, so I suppose that he won a 30% chance, I won a 50, so, take that as you will. So now I'm at 3.5 special attack, and he has Moltres. Alright, at this point, I don't know if I can one-shot this Moltres or not, because Astral Barrage isn't super effective, and Moltres is pretty especially defensive bulky. The Moltres I ran max special defense when I did my mono dark team, and it was like, it was really strong. So I was thinking to myself, there's no way Astral Barrage one-shots here. But what I can do is stall out Tailwind. So if I don't stall out Tailwind here, he just kills me for free, because both these things outspeed me. He's Tailwind, I don't. So I have to protect here. He does Dazzling Gleam and Fiery Wrath, but, pretty typical thing. I have to hit a protect here on the next turn as well. There's literally no other way to win this. He got double protect, so I'm like, I hope I do. and I actually get it. So we both get double protect. So now the luck is really in my favor. He's got his Whimsicott up. That's probably going to Tailwind. I'm not sure though. So here he has a couple options here. He can Fiery Wrath and Moonblast, or Dazzling Gleam, I guess, or he can Fiery Wrath and Tailwind. So if he Tailwinds and Fiery Wraths, then he definitely outspeeds me. I think that's probably the right play to make here. Because if he just Tailwinds and Fiery Wraths, then he outspeeds me. And presumably I don't one-shot him with Astral Barrage. That's where I'm thinking this turn. But he does something strange. I guess this was just to be safe. He protects the Tailwinds. I don't think this changes anything. So his Whimsicott dies. And he outspeeds me now. And I have Sash. That's really all I have. There's no way I can stall at this Tailwind. So I'm thinking it takes 2 shots to kill. But now I have him at +4. Or times 4, so +6 special attack. I've jacked this thing up to max special attack, Caloric Shadow Rider, and it just one-shots his Moltres. So Ditto managed to wipe out his entire team. So a big part of this team is Ditto and utilizing it correctly. One thing I like to do is lead out these two, and I will double protect turn 1, and then I can disable with Sableye. They're restricted, so if it's Zacian, maybe I disable their Behemoth Blade or something like that. So that's on turn 2, and then I Tailwind, and so now they have to either swap the restricted or use a different move. So maybe they try to use a different move. So maybe their Zacian tries to go close combat or Sacred Sword or something. I can swap into my Ditto onto whatever the restricted is while it's disabled and trying to get out of the Sableye trap. So there's been times where I've had Zacian on the field. They've had their restricted disabled, and I had my Zacian and the restricted copied, and theirs was disabled. So it works really, really well. And I think I can show a replay of this happening. So this is the battle I'm talking about. This is a really good example of using Sableye correctly. So Tapu Fini Zacian, double protect turn 1. This is a really safe strategy. This team does struggle with Water Urshifu though, because he can just go through the protect. So he uses Behemoth Blade, so I see a really good opportunity to send my own Zacian in and disable his. Oops. So I send out my Zacian, and I go for the disable on his. So now he can't use Behemoth Blade. Icy Wind doesn't really do too much in this situation. Speed control doesn't matter when you have Sableye, because Sableye has Prankster, and if he disables your opponent's Mon's like best move and locks them into it, then it doesn't matter if you're faster or not. They can't attack you. So he goes for protect. He blocks the encore, but I can just raise my special attack with Swords Dance here. I prefer Swords Dance over Substitute. So he goes for Icy Wind again. Now my speed's cut really far down. Now, if you're smart, he should swap out the Zacian, because I can just encore him straight into Protect. And now his Zacian is just stuck in Protect loops. It's not a threat. So a big part of this team is making sure your opponent's Pokemon that's a threat is just inoculated. So now he Moonblast, Sableye dies, and this is optimal for me. Behemoth Blade obviously kills Fini at this range with +3. So now I have his Zacian. Best thing about copying Zacian with Ditto is, as you see, I get his stat boost and my Intrepid Sword activates, so I get another attack boost. So now I'm at ×2. He's locked into Protect, and now I'm just Behemoth Blading like crazy. This is kind of a showcase of how this team is really supposed to work, and at this point he just forfeits because there's absolutely nothing he can do, and he's still locked into he's still encored into Protect. So yeah, this is a super good team. I hope that you will try it out. This is briefly all the different stats. I'll just go over them really quick. Adamant, 252, 252. Ditto, just max HP, max speed, max attack with Jolly. Adamant, 252, 252. Max defense, and then pretty standard set, max speed, max special attack on the Tornadus. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I will be having more teams coming soon. I hope you enjoy.